The NASA has doubled the probability of asteroids recently discovered, doubling, which has been very interested in both scientists and the public. This update follows a number of important observations, sophisticated calculations, and recently collected data, which has greatly changed the prediction of asteroid paths. The asteroid has long had a potential threat. This huge universe stone, sometimes covering hundreds or thousands of meters of universe, prevents space at a large speed. When their trajectory crosses with the trajectory of the Earth, they can continue to preserve tissues such as NASA to have a destructive effect. Until recently, however, the asteroids of the problem seem to be another object of potentially dangerous space, but it is not a direct threat. NASA now reported that the global scientific community is experiencing high boundaries due to the rapid increase in the probability of becoming noticeable on Earth. So why is the possibility of collision exactly? How did the astronomers come to this unstable conclusion? And what is potential results when the asteroid actually contacts the land? Let's take a closer look at the situation, defeat the science behind it, and take into account the steps to take care of NASA to control and soften the threats. The asteroids directed by XG in 2025 were first discovered a few years ago, and originally regarded as part of the global initiative to identify potentially dangerous spatial targets. At first, it was considered another general asteroid among many people who share the orbital area of the Earth. The early grades suggested that this raised a small threat when scientists believed that they would not look almost close enough to cause considerable concern. But after the NASA telescope continued to track him, there was a clear understanding. Accurate observations showed that astronomers were able to improve the track path and did not interfere with the conflict, but gradually approached the ground every year. Monitoring and tracking of neighboring objects, NEOs, is important for evaluating similar potential risks and understanding long-term effects on Earth. NASA and other space agencies around the world have invested important funds to track these objects using improved telescopes and space probes to determine the threats that can cause risk to the Earth. However, despite the years of monitoring, the uncertainty of about 2025, the trajectory of the XG was still high. The early grades showed that he was relatively unlikely to hit the land, but the astronomers were not completely convinced. Such objects are difficult to predict and many elements can affect the track. Even the gravity rod of other planets, the radiation of the Sun, and even the small pressure on the Sun itself can change the path of unpredictable roads. Scientists' main problems are always limited data available at the early stages of asteroid observation. The more time it takes, the more accurate forecasts and the recent change of prediction. How did we change to suddenly double the possibility of exposure in the fact that it looks like a low-risk scenario? The answer is a sophisticated calculation based on updated data, technology improvement, and recent observations. First, let's study the effect of gravity interaction. As with 2025, XG rotates in the Sun and experiences the impact of the nearby planets, especially Jupiter and Mars. Even minor gravity pushes are inconspicuous immediately, but they can subtly change the changes in asteroid paths that can accumulate over time. Recently, astronomers have found that the gravity of Mars has changed the path of 2025 slightly. Despite the initial increase in the likelihood that the asteroids will collide with the land for decades. Since he continues to orbit, more gravity interactions can lead to more distinct changes, and the possibility of future trajectory of the Earth is increased. In addition, the performance of the observation method provided the size of the asteroid and the more accurate understanding of the rotation. According to the initial estimates, the 2025 XG is relatively small and perhaps hundreds of meters, but the new data can be larger and harder than previously considered. Scientists have found that when the density of asteroids increases, the method of calculating the energy of potential conflicts changes. The larger and more dense asteroids can cause much more damage when it falls to the ground. Another key element of updated prediction is the progress of orbital modeling technology. NASA and other space agencies have developed a more complex software tool that can mimic asteroid pathways with much more accuracy. Such tools take into account the effects of gravity interactions, solar radiation, and even Yarkovsky rotation and heat absorption of asteroids, which can affect trajectory. This new modeling method allows scientists to make more accurate predictions on the future path of asteroids. According to the updated calculation, the asteroid is now much more likely to enter the ground. In fact, according to the recent estimates, the probability of exposure has increased from less than 1% to 2%, which has reduced the previous risk. 2% may still seem to be a small number in the context of the potential influence of asteroids, but this is the main cause. Even if the possibility of collision increases slightly, it can result in serious results in global preparation and response strategies. Now we understand that we have doubled the chance of hitting, so let's look at why NASA is particularly concerned. The main problem is not just a direct threat of asteroid. The 2% probability is relatively low, but it is important to justify attention. The actual treatment is the long-term results and unpredictable of the situation. First, potential influence on the Earth. The asteroids in consideration are not small in terms of space standards, but it is still large enough to cause considerable destruction when it collides with our Earth. The effect of this scale can emit energy corresponding to hundreds of megaton TNTs, which surpasses the power of nuclear weapons when the lobby explodes. This level of power can lead to extensive devastation, especially if it reaches a large population. The resulting impact can cause large-scale earthquakes, tsunamis, and fires, depending on the strike. The direct blow to a big city can lead to tens of millions of victims, while the sea can lead to chaos with huge tsunami in the coastal area. Even if the asteroid lands in a remote area, environmental results will still be serious. The collision will throw a huge amount of dust and garbage into the atmosphere, which will potentially block sunlight and cause the impact of nuclear winter, which will drop significantly. In addition to potential physical destruction, there is also a problem of preparation around the world. Space organizations such as NASA have been tracking land targets for many years, but there are few ways to prevent serious effects. There is no technology that can effectively reject the asteroid in the current path, and the window of action is incredibly short. The NASA performed a potential strategy for softening the asteroids, including the use of a spaceship for stretching the asteroid in the course, and exploded a nuclear device near the asteroid to change the trajectory or even the use of the laser. Nevertheless, all these methods are still experimental and not worked in this size asteroid. Since the probability of asteroid 2025 XG continues to change on Earth, scientists and space agencies are still dedicated to monitoring the situation, promoting deviation technology, and ensuring prepared humanity for all scenarios. The direct risk of collision is still low, but the increase in probability rapidly reminds the Earth's weakness of space threats. The upcoming decades will be important for technology and explanatory strategies to prevent destructive impacts. With global cooperation, detection systems, and new deviation methods controlled by AI, humanity ultimately can have a means of protecting the Earth from this existential risk. Until then, threats remain, and the world must be wary and united for unknown preparation.